Welcome in, everyone, to Deservingly You. I'm home this week for another few days. Feels good. Yeah, welcome in. Appreciate you.
Yes, and happy Mother's Day to thanks Leonard for your wish, and also it was a great reminder. Anybody who is celebrating Mother's Day this today, happy Mother's Day to you.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
Yeah.
tonight I'm excited about this topic that we're going to be covering tonight, and talking about those boundaries. And John actually did a little mini video today on Facebook that kind of touched on boundaries as well.
Kind of hit 1,000 views real quick. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, awesome. Well, are you ready to dive in, sir? It's so nice
I,
to have you here and not have any of the technical difficulties that we have when you're in those temporary spots.
I know, right? It's been pretty smooth, though, for the most part, considering.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. All
Before
right.
I forget, remember to like and subscribe, share, hit um, and notification buttons and all that crazy jazz. Appreciate you. Okay.
Yeah, they say even like with the hype now is a new one, like on your telephone or your on your phone or on if you're on a tablet. So I haven't found it yet, but I see other creators doing that. So anyway, I have allergies, so hopefully I'm not going to be going into like a coughing fit tonight. But I probably sound a little nasally and stuff, and it's because of lovely allergies. So anyway, let's dive in, shall we?
Yes.
All right. Well, welcome again to Deservingly You. This is where we talk honestly about what it takes to rebuild after those systems of control and how we can learn how to live a self-led life. I'm Shannon Avery Briggs. I'm a certified transformational resilience coach and co-founder of Luminous Connections and the Exit Generation movement. And tonight we're going to go somewhere practical. Last week we gave you that tool of clean inquiry, the way that you talk to yourself and the questions that you ask inside of your head when some of those patterns like fade, get loud. And then once you start changing the way that you talk to yourself, you can start noticing something else. You can start noticing the conversations that are happening around you and the ones that pull you backwards and the ones that may even leave you spiraling for days. I know that I've had experiences like that. And so that's what tonight is about. We're going to be giving you another tool, and this is what it's called micro boundaries, and they're about 10-second choices that can help us to prevent those 10-day spirals.
Hey, Shannon. And again, thank you for being here. Appreciate you. I'm John Briggs, also transformational sales coach and co-founder of Luminous Connections. And I want to be honest with you. For a long time, I thought that a boundary had to be this big, dramatic conversation, and sit them down, lay it all out, make them understand, right? And and of course, every time I did that, it didn't work, right? Didn't play out the way I expected. They didn't understand. I left somehow depleted, and the topic always came back around the next time that we interacted. And what I didn't know was that the boundary that I needed wasn't a big conversation. It was just a
Mm-hmm.
small thing, and sometimes 10 words, sometimes silence. And tonight we're going to walk through exactly what that looks like.
Yeah. So, like John said, if this is something that a lot of times we think that it has to be big, and a bunch of different words, but we're gonna introduce an idea that's a little bit different tonight and see if it resonates. I know that this kind of stuff has helped me and John immensely by being able to practice these types of things. So if you're here live, type live in the chat, and if you're catching the replay, do replay, and also let us know where you're watching from. We love to see that as well. And if conversations like this matter to you, we have a huge community that needs to be able to learn how to step forward and live those lives. So please like and subscribe and hit notify and share it if it related to you, or if you enjoyed it and if you think that somebody could benefit from it. So let's go ahead and dive in.
All right, so let's set. Before we go any further, I want to set the space for tonight, because how you show up in a conversation like this matters just as much as what we talk about.
Yeah. So here's what really supports this space is the agreements that we have among one another. This is a space where we want to reflect and not react, and we want to be able to stay focused. We want to do that for ourselves and focus on our own experience and see where we may be able to apply some of these different ideas so that we can start having those lives that are led by ourselves instead of being impacted by what's going on around us. And we're here to notice what's happening within us. One of the things that we always say too is having that curiosity over being judgmental, and also being aware over being critical.
Yeah, and tonight especially, right? Because we're talking about boundaries. It's tempting in a conversation like this to start thinking about other people, right? And the person who keeps pushing your buttons, maybe, and the relative who never stops, the friend who just doesn't get it. We're not here to figure them out, okay? We're here to figure out how you respond to them or to others, particular situation, because that's the only piece that you actually have control over.
Yeah. So as you're here with us, use the chat, share what stands out. We can learn from one another. We can share what feels familiar, share what comes up when we walk through all of this tonight, because some of this is going to land comfortably and some of it may land a little harder.
Right. And you don't have to share anything in order to be a part of this. You can listen, you can reflect, but if something lands, put it in the chat. I appreciate you doing that, because that's how this becomes active instead of just something that you hear. And that's kind of how people have those aha moments when they see or hear somebody else's perspective on a certain subject. It lands for them as well in a different way.
Yep. This is about you, but not where you've been. It's how you're showing up for yourself right now. All right, so let's dive in. So here's where we're going to go tonight. Last week, like we said, we worked on the conversation that was happening inside of our head. And tonight, we're going to start working on the conversations that are happening outside of it. Because here's what we know, that you can do all of that inner work, and you can have your clean inquiry running, and you can be in a really good place. And then somebody says one sentence, and you're back into that spiral for days.
Yeah, that's the part that nobody really warned us about, did they? After you leave a high control environment, you don't just have to rebuild yourself. You have to navigate every relationship that knew the old version of you, and some of those people don't want the new version. They want their version back, the one that's familiar to them and their expectations.
Yeah, because when you start doing things differently and start showing up differently, it can make them uncomfortable. And so like John said, they want that version of you that makes it more comfortable. So by the time that we're done tonight, hopefully you're going to be walking away with a few things. First of all, an understanding of what a micro boundary actually is and why they're not the same thing as that big confrontation. The second thing is something that we're calling the boundary ladder. These are 3 tiers that you can use in real time.
Yeah, and these aren't theoretical. All right, these are exact phrases, the actual words. So when the moment comes, you don't have to make it up under pressure and kind of fumble with those words. You got something right there and ready to go.
Yeah. Oh, and Jay joined us tonight. Hi, Jay. It's good to see you. So after this, we're going to give you that micro boundary protocol, the trigger, breath, script, exit. It's 4 steps, takes you about 10 seconds. And then we're going to close with a 24-hour micro commitment. One small thing that you can do before you sleep tonight.
Okay, so let's start with what a micro boundary actually is.
Okay, so micro boundaries. This is that second tool, like what we were talking about, that we're introducing inside our exit paths framework. That phase 1, that first part of the piercing of the illusion. And the reason that it comes second is because once you started changing how you start questioning yourself inside your head, that next layer is to change how you're responding when other people's words land in your space. So a micro boundary is 3 things at once. First of all, it's a choice. It's a 10-second decision that can keep a conversation from becoming that 10-day spiral. And it requires no argument, no explanation, and here's a biggie, no permission.
Yep, and that part is huge, okay? Because most of us were taught that if you're going to set a boundary, you have to justify it some way, and you have to explain it away. You have to make sure that they agree with it. And a micro boundary doesn't need their permission, okay? It just needs your follow through and commitment to it.
So I want to say that again, what you just said, that we don't need somebody else's permission to have a micro boundary for ourselves. The responsibility falls on us. And so we need to be practicing that follow through when we decide to set a micro boundary. So the second thing is a micro boundary is a protection. It's that moment between somebody's words and your reaction. It might be a breath, a redirect, a quiet exit, and whatever it takes to preserve your energy and your self-trust. And one of the things that I have found as I've done these, that I've, when I started doing this type of thing, is that space, that second piece of it, can be really, really uncomfortable when we're not used to doing things like this. And so we have to, even though we're going to be fighting that pull to speak up, or instead of redirecting or having a quiet exit, that's where we talk about that follow through is really important.
And the third thing there that you can see is it's a skill, that so anybody can learn it, right? And one practiced phrase can shut down a triggering topic before it even opens. And so that's a micro boundary in action, and we're going to show you exactly how that works.
Yep. So let's look at where micro boundaries actually show up, because this isn't something that's abstract. It could be like at the dinner table. It could be where we get a text on our phone, or if we're working even at a work meeting. It could even be the quiet moment in the car after you've left a situation.
Absolutely. So let's walk through it, okay? So first thing there on the list, family gatherings, right? For example, a relative reopens a topic that you've already closed, prior, at another time. And maybe it's something about your beliefs, or maybe it's about a choice that you've made. Maybe it's just that look that they give you, disapproval perhaps. And tonight we're going to give you the language just to shut that down, to close it again without it turning into some sort of fight, or another incident type of deal.
Yeah. One of the things too, I want to highlight what you were talking about, John, too, is that, a relative opens up a topic that you already closed, or that something, it's about your beliefs. So these are things that belong to you, and yet they want to reopen it. I recently heard I was talking to a friend a few weeks ago, and somebody in their family had done this exact thing, and it was really a challenge to. They were attempting to explain their side and trying to get them to understand, instead of just setting the boundary and just basically, thank you, I'm done having this conversation. So if we move on here, there may be former community members. So somebody from the old environment finds you, for example, and they may ask loaded questions about what your beliefs are, or what's your status, what are you doing now. And so a micro boundary can help you to decline those questions, those loaded questions, without ending up getting pulled into debating any theology.
And then the next thing there is the workplace conversations. A colleague may push you on something personal, or political, or just something that you just don't want to discuss. And you can step back from the conversation without stepping on the relationship.
Yeah. So in the last one that we've got, this one really matters too. It's the inside your head, because sometimes the loudest boundary violations often aren't from other people. They're actually from that internal voice that says that you have to answer, and you have to justify what your stand is, or your belief, or what you did. You have to endure. And that voice is the one that you have to set the boundary with first.
That's right. Because, if you can't tell yourself, you don't have to answer that. You'll never be able to say that to anyone else. Okay. So please drop in the chat if one of those four feels like your life right now, or something familiar, to the family, the former community, the work, or inside your own head.
Yes, I'd be really curious where these are showing up in your life.
For me, it'd be in my own head, right? That's what lands right now.
Yeah, I for me, it's like I always feel like I always felt like I needed to justify my my decision and where I was. So before we go into the tools, we have to name something, because if you've been struggling with boundaries, a lot of people that leave those high control environments do. It's not because something is wrong. It's because, once again, what was installed.
Yeah, and this is the part that nobody really likes to talk about or does. In a high control environment, they didn't just control your behavior. Okay, they removed your right to have a boundary, period. In the first place. So
Yeah. So let's name what high controlled environments actually put into place. Saying no was evidence of spiritual failure. Compliance was love. Resistance meant rebellion. Your discomfort was the problem, not the system. And so other people's needs automatically outrank your own. And having that loyalty to the group always outranked loyalty to yourself. And Jay just said that he got invited to a talk and he didn't return your call. Perfect example of setting a boundary. Yeah. So when we do this, when we have these kind of situations, that's not what a healthy relationship looks like. That's a system that depends on you not having any boundaries.
Right. And that's exactly what it looks like after you've left. Guilt when you decline even harmless requests, over explaining and trying to defend your choices like if you're on trial, and some sort of fear that a single boundary will destroy the whole relationship. And saying yes when your whole body is just saying no. Okay. And the one I see the most in myself, enduring conversations that leave you completely depleted, because you don't think you have permission to step away or to leave that conversation.
Yeah. And here's one of the things that we want you to hear really clear. You didn't fail how to learn, or you didn't fail to learn how to prioritize yourself. You were actually trained out of it. But you can also learn it again. And once again, we're going to go back to that 10 seconds and what we can do in 10 seconds. So now we're going to go into the actual tool. And like we said, we call this the boundary ladder. There are 3 tiers: that redirect, pause, and negate. And the reason that we built it as a ladder is because not every situation needs the same response. Some might need a soft step, and others might need a firmer one. And the skill that you build on is knowing which one to reach for.
Yes. So the first one there you see is redirect, and it's the lightest one. You stay engaged in the conversation, but you change the direction of it. You make that shift. So you're not shutting it down. You're just steering it somewhere safer. It sounds like, something like, hey, that's a big topic. In order to redirect, that's a big topic, and I'd love to hear what's been good for you lately. And so you can see that you took the wheel, but without making it a thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to have that tone or that body language, that look. You can just with the words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the second one on the ladder is pause. And this one is for when you need a moment. You don't have to have that full response right now. And you don't have to give them a full explanation. It might sound like, I'd like to sit with that, and I'll get back to you when I'm ready. And that's the whole thing. Low conflict, high protection. It's honest. You're not lying. And you actually choose to take a minute.
Yeah. And then the third one there, as you can see, is gate. And this one just closes the topic entirely. You're firm. It's non-negotiable. There's no debate, no elaboration. It sounds like, hey, that's not something I'm discussing today, and I appreciate you understanding that. And that's it. You don't owe any more than that. You don't have to defend it. You don't have to soften it any further than that. You just shut it down.
Yep. You don't have to explain your boundaries. They're yours. You just have to hold them.
Something I'd like to say that comes to mind is that these boundaries, they're not rules, but they are for someone else. They're standards for you. So, it's like a stop sign. There's going to be people that don't obey the speed limit or stop sign, but it doesn't take it away. So which of these 3 feels hardest for you right now in the moment? Redirect, pause, or gate? So drop in the chat. We want to know.
I know for me, it's typically the gate.
Me too. I'm
Because
usually very soft
yeah,
and but direct and to the point and matter of fact. But in order to save, to not escalate, I'm usually pretty soft on things.
well, and a lot of times what will happen in the gate situation too is, you end up, you might say, I'm not discussing that today, and even say, I appreciate you understanding, but they'll turn around and come back and still try to pull at you. They'll still ask questions. They'll want to know why don't you want to discuss it, and stuff. So that being able to hold to those boundaries that you set, that can be that can take some practice as we build that muscle.
I have more success with redirect myself.
Me too.
I just, because people, like the squirrel thing, you just kind of direct them in a different way to something different. And
Yep.
like, oh, yeah,
human nature. Definitely. So now let's take a look at the language, because the difference between a boundary that holds and a boundary that doesn't is usually in the words.
Yep. So most of us we've been there, right? And so you think you're setting a boundary, but the way you set it just kind of left the door wide open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so here's what that might sound like without that micro boundary. Well, I mean, I guess I just feel like it's complicated. That's not a boundary. That's an invitation for them to keep going. And whereas with a micro boundary, that's not something that I'm going to get into right now.
Yeah. And then without a micro boundary, it kind of sounds like, oh, I don't know, maybe you're right, but also, and then 20 minutes later, you're still on that topic and going about it. So, but with a micro boundary, it's going to sound more like I hear you, and I'm going to leave that topic, right here for now.
Yeah. So another example is without that micro boundary. Why do you always bring that up? I ... But with a boundary, be like, I'd love to catch up on something else. How are things with you?
Indeed. Yeah. And then the last one there is, and this is the one that gets all of us. Without a micro boundary, it's I'm fine. Okay. But you're not fine. And then you're kind of in a spiral for 10 days there. And then with a micro boundary, I need a few minutes, so I'll come back to this when I'm ready.
Yeah. So Jay made the comment that he doesn't do that one at all. He doesn't do the redirect at all, or the pause. No, it's the pause. And and so I'm curious if you could see yourself saying something like that. Oh yeah, I'm fine. When instead of like taking some time. So I'm curious if you could ever see yourself doing that. But here's the line that we will also want you to remember is that a boundary held with 2 words, lands harder than a boundary that you've tried to explain for 2 minutes or 4 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes. That that shorter piece, the whether it's 2 words, whether it's just a few, that will land better and that will be firmer.
So I wanted to go back to what you just said a minute ago, Shannon, about Jason, something about the pause.
Mm-hmm.
He's not good at that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to comment to that. To be able to do that in real time as things are unfolding in front of you is an absolute superpower. Because to be able to step away and revisit it later changes the whole dynamic of the conversation or the topic. It definitely does that.
Yeah. And we should practice these so that we've got them in our toolkit, so that if we do need them, and we've got something that we can pull from.
Absolutely, yes. When you only have a hammer in your toolbox, everything's a nail.
That sounds like you. I've seen your
That's how I used
toolbox.
How I was anyway.
So let's go a little bit deeper, because we want you to hear also what these sound like when they're aimed at you, and the kinds of things that people might say.
Yeah. So there, someone might say, "Why are you still so angry about all that?" Right? And the micro boundary would be, "I'm not in a place to revisit that at this time. Right now." So notice you didn't deny the anger. You didn't have to explain it, or you didn't go into that, and you just said where you are, and that was it.
Because here's the thing too, if we play this out just a little bit further with the angry, if by chance you do try to go in and explain the anger, what's going to happen in that conversation? Is it really going to end up benefiting you? Versus, is it worth getting into those types of conversations? Whereas if you can set that boundary that I'm not in a place to discuss that right now, that can stop that. Because when we this all ends up having an effect on our nervous system. And when we've got those triggers that are happening in our nervous system, then we're not functioning at our best. We may go into fight or flight, when we have that anger and stuff come up. And so these are things that we want to think about. What's the outcome that we want to have in these type of conversations? So, for example, if somebody came to you and said, "Don't you think you're overreacting?" That micro boundary might be, "I'm going to trust what I'm feeling, and we're going to go ahead and move on." That second sentence that we talk, that "let's move on," that's your exit. And that's how you don't end up getting pulled back into having to defend yourself.
And that next one, you should really talk to someone from your past. This one comes up a lot for people who have left. Someone says that you should really talk to someone from your past. The micro boundary would be, "Hey, I appreciate that. That's not something that I'm open to at this time, or right now."
Yeah.
So during that exchange, you honored that they care about you that way, but you didn't fight it. You didn't try to fight them about it, and you didn't say yes either.
Yeah. So then our last example that we've got is, and I've had this one. I've had this one thrown at me. When are you going to get over it? And the boundary is, that's not a timeline I'm setting. I'd love to talk about something else. So that's that redirect. And so an answer like that is the difference between staying in that conversation as yourself, or being pulled into somebody else's frame, into their stories.
Yeah, that's something that I've learned not to say. When are you going to get over this? You're overreacting, because you're not validating anyone's feelings by those types of comments, and it just throws up a wall and shuts, and causes all types of issues.
Yeah.
But I want you to notice is that none of these are aggressive, in any type of way. None of them are mean, and none of them require you to justify anything. Okay, they just hold the line.
Yep.
Period.
Yeah. So we talked about that framework, and we looked at some of these ideas. And now what we want to do is kind of share some of our experiences where we've used micro boundaries. And for John and me, they're real life. We learned them through our journey, and sometimes it's through the hard way. But one of the experience that I wanted to share was not too long ago. I found out that my sister had said something about me. She had misrepresented me. She talked to somebody and was, quote, warning them about me. And the old me, that version of me that came out of that environment, would have done one of two things. I would have either fired back, gotten mad, and reached out immediately and got in her face and stuff, or I would have shut down completely and let it just eat at me forever and ever and ever. And for days on end. I chose not to do either of those things because of what I've learned and what we've put into practice in our life. I did take my time and I let myself, I did feel the hurt. I recognized it. But then what I did was I figured out exactly what about it was bothering me and why. And then I chose to write her a letter. So that letter was actually my boundary, and it wasn't loud. It wasn't reactive. It was clear, intentional, and it was mine. And what I hope to get across is that the boundary wasn't just in the letter. The boundary started the moment I decided not to react. The pause was part of the boundary. And everything after was the delivery.
Thank you for that, Shannon. Appreciate it. I'd like to share one of mine. So I have an uncle who, and there came a point where my relationship with him needed to look very different than it had been in the past. A while back, he reached out to us and he had an article. He had read an article about making things right with people in your life, or brothers or friends in the congregation or whatever it was. And I think he expected the response to be well taken, a hug and whatnot. So Shannon and I sat with his email, and we didn't react to it right away. And when we finally responded to it, we didn't write anything new. We sent back the original email that I'd sent him months before, if not years, and the one with the spreadsheet of all that was owed, down to the dollar. Yeah. So he couldn't claim we'd made it up. He couldn't say that that's not what we agreed to before in the past. The receipts were there and documentation. So he blamed us anyway, is what happened. And he made it our fault, is what he did, and said we were unfair, and that we didn't re-explain, we didn't move past that. And so we didn't try to chase his conscience, so to speak. We reset the boundary, and we stopped interacting with him, and that was it. So, yeah. So the boundary was the spreadsheet, and holding it when he pushed back was the micro boundary. And so there are two different things entirely.
Yeah. So that there's that moment that you hold the boundary and you keep the promise.
Yeah. So if any part of either of our stories resonated and sounded familiar to you, go ahead and hit that like button. And so we know that we're not alone in this. And it doesn't sound too crazy.
John joined us too. So welcome, John.
Thank you, John.
And thank you for the Happy Mother's Day. So now we want to give you something that you potentially could use in a moment like that, because in that moment, you may not have time to remember the specific framework, but sometimes sequences can help us. And so this one is called a micro boundary protocol. It's 4 steps. It can take you about 10 seconds. That trigger, breath, script, exit.
So the first there you can see is trigger. You notice the activation, the tightening in your chest, that familiar dread when a name comes up or a topic begins or gets brought up, and the urge to defend it or explain before they've even finished talking. That sensation is a signal. It's your signal. And it's not your enemy. It's your body telling you that something is happening that needs your attention right now.
Yes. So remember, John and I often say, where do you feel it in your body? And so we've talked about that in the weeks past, about really, really paying attention to things that you might pick up. And like he mentioned, this might show up as potentially a tightening in your chest. It might be even, you might feel warm. You might, if anger comes on, you might feel warm or something like that. So the second step of this is breath. Taking one breath before you say any words. This right here is the most important step. And it's one that all of us have a tendency to skip, because in that high controlled environment, we were actually trained to respond immediately and to answer fast and to show that we were cooperative and to give the answers that they were to the questions that they were asking. But that breath is where that micro boundary it starts and it can be born. And it actually interrupts that automatic response that we've got in our body. So it's not a weakness, it's actually a strategy.
Right. And you see there, the third one is script. You deliver your pre-chosen phrase. And this is why we walk through the language tonight. Because in the moment under pressure, you're not going to come up with the perfect words. Okay. You don't need to though either. You just need a phrase that you've already practiced, kind of brief, clear, done, down to the point.
And then that final step is exit. And this is also what people can miss because they set the boundary and then they wait. And you might look for approval, or you might want to make sure the other person agrees. But the exit is actually part of the boundary. So just like we were sharing about John's uncle, part of it was we reset the boundary and he wasn't allowed back into our life, and so we kept that exit from him. And this isn't about escaping. It's actually about us changing the subject or changing, what people are allowed, to get to with you. This might be show up, if you're in a room with somebody, you might move physically, or you may, if it's over a text or a Zoom or whatever, you might go quiet, whatever it takes. And here's one of the things that is really, really hard to kind of get your mind around this. You don't owe that conversation a conclusion. You can define what that exit can be the conclusion.
Yeah. So 4 steps, 10 seconds. Your peace, is going to be protected in that space. And the more you practice it, the faster it gets, and the more deliberate and intentional that it happens.
You said something really important there too, like your peace being protected. That's
Yes.
part of the reason that we do this. That's why we set boundaries up, is to protect our peace and to be able to start building that trust and that trust in ourselves again. So that's why we do all of these types of things.
For a lot of people get confused about boundaries. They make it about someone else, a rule for other people. It's not about other people. It's about you and your standards, your peace protected. To say that again. So.
Yep. So we're going to give a little bit different angle. Maybe it'll resonate with some of you. I know that we kind of go over it and we just kind of give a different perspective on all of these. So hopefully this can put it in a way that you can use it, because in real life a trigger doesn't come with a bugle horn and announce itself. It will happen. And so you want to be able to learn how to recognize that signal, and then you got to know what to do with it.
So when your chest tightens there, like it says in the first box, when you feel that physical signal, when that happens, your chest tightening, that's your cue. And the typical reaction is to engage and explain endlessly. And the micro boundary is, I'm going to step back from this one.
And there may be those situations, if you think about like even family get-togethers or whatever, and it's like you recognize a pattern and you're like, oh boy, here we go again. You get that feeling. And this one is where you can already feel where that conversation is going. And that typical reaction, I actually saw Leonard say it earlier. The typical reaction is to want to defend ourselves, justify, or overshare. But the micro boundary is, that's not something I'm going to get into today.
Right. And so when you feel the urge to people please, when every cell in your body is saying no, but your mouth is forming the word yes, the typical reaction is to say yes anyway, and then resent it later. The micro boundary would be to, I love you, and this doesn't work for me right now.
Yeah.
So notice I love you, and in front of it doesn't soften the boundary. It just makes it clear that the boundary is not about them, as a person. You're not attacking them directly.
Yeah.
Although they may take it that way, but that's their problem.
So another situation that might happen is somebody reopens a topic that you've already decided is closed, and you actually have that internal feel to and pull to give it one more round. And this might be out of guilt, or it could be out of shame. The typical reaction may be to re-engage. But when we set a micro boundary around this, it's like, I've already made peace with where I stand on that. And this was one that I actually was putting into practice not long ago. Just being okay, having to communicate. I'm okay with who I am, and I'm okay how I'm showing up in this space right now. And so a lot of this is new. We're learning something new. And we got a comment. This is a person without boundaries is a person without self-respect. But a lot of this is learned. We have to learn how to set healthy boundaries, and to be able to do it. If we do it in a kind way, learn how to do it in a kind way, then we aren't opening ourselves up for additional. Once again, we talked about wanting to be able to protect our peace. And if we learn how to set these types of boundaries well, then we can protect that peace as well.
And there, you notice there on the bottom line there is the physical urge to leave would be the signal. And when you feel that urge to leave, that's not weakness. Okay. That's wisdom. Okay, the typical reaction there would be to stay and shut down. And the micro boundary is, hey, look, I need a few minutes. I'll check back with you in on that later. You know. So the signal in your body, before it's in your words, is just trust that. Trust the signal.
Yep, absolutely. So most people, when they hear the word boundary, they can, like we said in the very beginning, a lot of times people will picture something huge, something that's long. It's a long, hard conversation. It may, they might have thought, well, this is a confrontation or an ultimatum, because that's what we were taught.
Absolutely. Yes. Like she said, that's what most of us were taught a boundary was, the idea that we got, or that was demonstrated to us by other people as well. So, you know, it might sound like I need to have this long conversation with you about everything. And I need you to change. I need you to change. You know, that's control. Here's the thing about that kind of boundary. It hands all the power over to them, the other person. Because if they don't change, you have no boundary.
You want to say that again?
It hands if you
The thing about that kind of boundary.
It hands all the power over to them, and in that instance, then you have no boundary, because if they don't change, then there is none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we talk about micro boundaries, that's something different, and it like we have said a couple of times, I'm not discussing that today. And I hope you understand. That's it. That's the boundary.
Yeah.
You don't have to go into all of the details of explaining even why you're not discussing it. You don't have to do that.
And the reason it works is because it doesn't depend on them. It depends on you. You're the one holding it.
Yeah.
I mean, if they understand, great. If they don't, also fine. You know, the boundary still stands. So, like I mentioned before, the boundary is not a rule for them. It's a standard for you.
Yeah. Like what we were talking about earlier with John's uncle, you know, he didn't understand. He didn't understand that he expected us to take, you know, that he thought it had been written out on a whiteboard and that we could just take the eraser and just erase it, you know, that boundary that we had set with him before. But we kept it. It still stood. And we know that he didn't understand. The other thing too, he got mad. He was very angry and accused us of things and stuff. So the part that really matters is that you're not responsible for managing their reaction. You're responsible for protecting your peace. And so micro boundaries, like we've said, are one of the ways that you can do that. And this can be done one conversation at a time.
And that shift, you're right, from trying to manage how they feel about your boundary, to just holding it, that, you know, the boundary that's a game changer. Definitely. Yeah.
And the thing is, one of the things that I learned was I started doing this too, as I started practicing these skills, is not only like protecting that peace and feeling that, but I also ended up feeling lighter. I wasn't feeling like I was being pulled down by other people's behaviors, other people's opinions and stuff. So having that boundary really, really helped me to have more peace in my life, as well as not having that control by other people. So we're going to talk about what we walked through tonight. So we started with what micro boundaries actually are. They can be 10-second choices to prevent those spirals that sometimes can last for days. And we do this without confrontations, no ultimatums, and a skill that anybody can learn.
Yeah. Then we gave you the boundary ladder. 3 tiers: redirect, pause, and gate. So you have options for any conversation, and any level of energy that you've got that day.
Yeah. And we learned that Jay is really good at the redirect and the gate, but not so much the pause. So we also walked through the scripts that hold, and a language that doesn't invite that debate. These are brief, clear, kind. It's really important, kind, as well as non-negotiable. And they're delivered without any over-explaining.
Yep. And then after that, we gave you the micro boundary protocol: the trigger, breath, script, and exit. A four-step sequence you can use the moment that the activation begins.
Yep. And then we landed on that real boundary. You're not responsible for managing their reaction. You're responsible for protecting your peace.
And remember, everything that we're building is at the exitgeneration.org. And that's where your free workbook is there, just waiting for you. Check it out.
Yep.
Game changer.
Yep. All right. So let's open it up if anybody wants to come on. If you've got a story or a question. Actually, if you got a question or a thought, we'd love to see what you guys think of this topic. We'd love to hear that. So let me put it in the chat. If anybody would.
Please remember, it doesn't have to be some polished presentation. Just whatever's on your mind, whatever's real for you right now.
That means, yeah. But we want to look forward. We don't want to be like looking at what everybody else does in these situations. We want to look at ourselves. We want to look at how we are doing it, and like which one of these tools might you be able to use in the future.
Indeed. So, yeah. Maybe it's a situation where you wish you had a micro boundary
yep.
in place.
All right. So we have Leonard again. We get to see whether or not he volunteered this week. If you found out where he's going to volunteer.
Hi, Leonard. Good to see you, buddy.
Hi. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
I just want to say that about what we talked about tonight, and as far as boundaries and limitations, growing up for me growing up, it was always that, from what I was taught, if somebody does or say anything to you that you don't like, just turn your head, sweep it under the rug, and let it go, because you can't do anything about it anyway. So I just took that as, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to accept being the fact that I'm a doormat, because that's how I was always treated. And it's not just with my relatives, it was just always as in a general. Even when it came to authority, teachers, firefighters, policemen, the mayor, just anybody that was, well, I shouldn't say older, which would have been older, but just in general, because if anybody just did anything or said anything to me, I was just, okay, you just turn the other cheek because it ain't nothing you can do about it. That's how I was taught.
And so, what idea did you take from tonight then that might shift a little bit?
I would like to say real quick, and we mentioned it before and earlier, is that the only thing that you can control is your response, and you can't really control their behavior.
And what I've taken from tonight is that it's not hard to have boundaries and limitations, but for honestly, it is kind of difficult to open up because, as I stated in the chat, once I feel disrespected, it's an instant to defend myself because from what I was taught, I was always taught to just internalize instead of just opening up and expressing it. Because if I did open up and express it, I was going to hell, basically, because I was in spiritual rebellion from on the base and on the count of spiritually and as a general.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to like our topic tonight though. What did you take away tonight? What are you going to take away and shift? And ultimately the ultimate goal is to protect your peace. So what are some ideas that we shared tonight that you'll be able to take forward? Because when you go into those where you're having to debate or you're having to basically speak up and try to justify, that's not keeping your peace. So what are you going to take away from tonight to help you to keep protecting your peace? What moment? Which one stood out to you?
When it goes back to the boundaries, the third one, that's the one that stuck out for me.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah.
The boundary ladder, redirect, pause, and gate. The gate being third, is that what you mean?
Yeah, that one. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Will you just close it down entirely?
So what's your phrase? What's your phrase that you'll end up using for that in the future?
I really hadn't thought of a phrase. I'm sure it's gonna come, but I hadn't really thought of a phrase.
Well, the example that we gave was that's for that was that's not something that I'm discussing today, and I appreciate you understanding. It's just direct, and it just in most instances would just shut it down. Now, obviously, you could mold that into something entirely different or a version of it. It's just an example there.
But can you see the difference?
Yeah.
Versus like just basically turning the other cheek, because you're still giving them a level of respect.
Yeah. Yes. I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to know, did you reach out to some charities to volunteer with?
I have.
Yeah?
Man,
Which one did you choose?
I chose the animal at first, and they hadn't contacted me as of yet.
Yeah.
But I have been doing well in my spare time. I have been writing some what I call songs. But besides that,
well, I'm so proud of you for for reaching out, and we look forward to hearing about your journey and being able to actually identify a charity that you can volunteer at and help build that self-esteem up.
And remember, it can take some time for these organizations to respond, because they could have hundreds of emails or people to get back to.
Yeah.
So just be patient. Don't get discouraged.
Yeah.
And if you don't hear back within a few weeks, I'd suggest reaching back out, or even stopping by. Whatever feels right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Any other thoughts, Leonard?
No, ma'am. That's all.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, and I'm glad that you took some ideas from tonight.
Yes. Thank you, Leonard.
Be able to move forward with them. So once again, it's about protecting your peace and having those boundaries so that you can protect your peace. Okay.
All right.
Proud of you. Proud of you. See you later.
Take care. All righty. Okay. So, if any of you would like to keep working on this, we didn't have anybody else show up that wanted to go on screen. So, we actually continue this conversation on Monday evenings inside the Exit Generation Facebook. We set up a Zoom where we can actually have a conversation, and we cover these questions here. And what were you going to say, John?
I was just going to mention if that's tomorrow, every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And tomorrow being, the 11th? Yeah. Yeah,
tomorrow's the 11th. But we go over these 5 questions, and we can, by doing this, you get to like visit like what your thoughts are about it, and also identify like how maybe your body is showing up and showing you the signal, and about what comes up when you heard what I'm not discussing that today, and be able to figure out, okay, what I'm going to take forward to move forward. So what idea am I going to take tonight so that I can move forward and start putting these into practice? So if you want the link, we'll have it in the description, or you can do a search on Facebook and find us there. And we would love to have you join us. We've had a couple of people, or we've had every week. We've been able to have these conversations every week, and they are very encouraging and empowering. And I love how a lot of times we'll even start out, and then by the end of the conversation, where that your energy is just up. And it's different when you're asking questions like this and really, really tuning into you instead of going off of like what's in a paragraph. This is about getting comfortable with you and finding out what's going on inside you. So anyway, that's tomorrow night at 4 p.m. in Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern, in the Exit Generation Facebook group. And so we promised also at the beginning that we were going to have that 24-hour micro commitment. So one boundary, one day, and that's it.
Yeah, because nothing changes from listening all by itself. Okay, something has to happen between tonight and the next time that you talk to us.
That's an invitation, not a must. We're inviting you to do this. So
absolutely, of course.
Yeah. So before you go to sleep tonight, we'd love to have you choose one of 3 things. Maybe identify one conversation topic that you know is coming up, and write down the exact phrase you'll use, and whether or not you're going to use redirect, pause, or gate, and choose one and write it down.
Second, practice your script out loud, like it says there. because the words, they just feel different in your mouth than they do when they just sitting in your head, and you want them to feel familiar, before that moment hits.
Yep. And then the third one is the next time, if you happen to feel that familiar, maybe it's the tightening of your chest, just take a breath before you actually respond, just one. And this could be it can be a text, it can be a post, it can be a conversation on the phone. Take that breath before you respond, because that breath can help you, and it alone is a boundary itself, and can start that to strengthen it.
And then finally, share your micro commitment in the exit generation community on Monday, and we'll celebrate every single one like it says there.
Yep, definitely. So like we said, this is a 10-second choice and one promise. This is all about for you. This is a promise to keep to yourself. And that's where all of this starts. That's where so many people have said to John and I that they can't believe that we've come as far as we have, but we've done work like this, and that these types of things has helped us to move forward and to not get pulled in and to not be devastated by different things that end up happening. It's one micro thing at a time. So next week, what do we got next week?
Well, you came in tonight maybe carrying conversations that have been weighing on you for years. And now you've got some language to use. And, you've got a ladder, you've got a protocol, and you got something that you can actually put into practice.
Mm-hmm. So next week, we're going to talk about, there's a lot of times when you first come out of a high controlled environment where we think that we've got to make all of these decisions, but we're actually going to talk about how we don't want to do that and why you shouldn't make big decisions right after leaving a high controlled environment. And that can be a religion, it can be a relationship, it can be any types of those things.
Exactly, because one of the things that happens when you come out of high control environments is that your decision making is scrambled. Okay, and that's not a flaw, that's biology. And we're going to walk you through what's actually happening in your head and in your brain, the process, and why some decisions just need to be pushed out and wait.
Yeah, we're not going to get into like the nitty gritty scientific aspects of what's going on in your brain, but a general idea of coming from a perspective of coaches and what we've learned from from some of our mentors and also our own experiences. And so we're going to look at some of the decisions that people will make and they rush into them after they leave. It might be the marriages, it might be the moves, cutoffs, new communities, some of those types of things. And we want to be honest about which ones we can pause on and which ones we shouldn't.
We're going to talk about something that doesn't get enough attention. Some decisions just get made for us, and we don't always have the luxury of waiting. Okay, so we're going to walk through how to find your power even in a forced transition. Okay, because how you respond is still a decision.
Yep.
And it's still yours.
Yeah. So make sure that you've subscribed and hit that like and notification button so you don't miss it. Share it with somebody who you think might need this. From what we have heard, we actually were at a meetup yesterday and heard some of the numbers that are coming out of the organization. And so these are the types of things, like I said, that helped John and I. So we're just sharing, like, not only what we've been trained in, but also our own personal experience. So if there's anybody who you think might be able to benefit, we'd love to have you share it.
Yes, please do. Thank you.
So we want to leave you, we always leave you with a quote, as you know. And so tonight, boundaries are a part of self-care. They're healthy, normal, and necessary. So if any part of tonight felt like setting a boundary was selfish or harsh or wrong, take this quote with you. They're not a betrayal. They're a return to yourself.
Let's just take a breath with that. Let that sink in.
Oh. Thank you, John. The other John.
I figured as much. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. We love you guys. And that's what we got for you tonight. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the things too is thank you so much for trusting this space with what you're carrying.
Yeah. And if this was helpful, like Shannon said before, please go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit notify, share. And
come join the conversation in the Exit Generation.
yes, tomorrow night.
Check out the exitgeneration.org. That's where we actually kind of have the look ahead now of the topics that we're going to be having on this show. Also, the things that are going on in the group, as well as, granted, some of these are local, but our meetups we'll have on there as well. And so you can learn a little bit too more about the work that John and I do and want to do and envision to do with this community, and how we can all come together and heal together and have the life that we were meant to live.
Absolutely. So we'll see you next time.
All right.
Thank you again. Appreciate each and every one of you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.